Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Disgruntled Geeks podcast. We are the most honest, critical, and sometimes cynical podcast you will ever hear. And today, of course, I'm Ronnie. I am one of your two regular hosts, and as always, with me, I've got Ben here with me.
Hey,
So, Ben, before we introduce our third host, whose lovely face for the live audience is actually in the corner down here.
that's not a
Um,
picture. He's just holding that pose.
yeah, he's literally
He's
holding
doing
it.
that for the whole hour.
But before we
I am
introduce
a professional ventriloquist on the side,
his
which
mouth,
doesn't
isn't
really
even moving.
translate for podcasting, but
Well, might as well
Depends
go
what
ahead and
you-
introduce him real quick. This is
Yeah.
our third guest this week is a good friend, a gentleman by the name of Malcolm.
hello. Thanks for having me on.
Sure.
Which soon you're going to be Dr. Malcolm, aren't you?
Yes, clinical psychology PhD starting in the fall. So it'll be like 5 or 6 years, but at some point.
Yeah. So
But we'll have you back on when you're Dr. Malcolm.
right, and
Yes.
then because we're still going to be going on in 5 years, I'd love
we,
that.
we like to believe.
Hopefully,
right.
both of those things will keep going. Me and the podcast.
Maybe
Right.
so. Maybe so.
So today's a pretty important day.
It is.
Ben, from what I understand, you turned 43 today.
That's right.
So you look pretty young for
I'm
43.
a 43-year-old man.
And you look like you're no young. You look no younger than 78.
That's right.
Right.
No.
I also have the same bowel problems of a 78-year-old man too, to go
Yeah.
along with it.
Sure.
All at once.
You are the package deal.
I am.
Oh,
Yeah, 43 years old.
yeah.
But body's already aged like a 78-year-old man.
So definitely, happy birthday, Ben.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You are the youngest looking 43-year-old I know. So
I appreciate that.
So
You don't know how much product goes in to really just hide the 78-year-old illusion.
right. So tell me, Ben, what have you been up to this week?
This week hasn't been much. I did get a lot of painting done for Legion. I have a lot of stormtroopers who are different shades of white, snowtroopers who are also different shades of white, but more prepared for the cold. And then today, actually, I did manage to get to play with them. So a lot of Legion,
Oh.
little bit of video gaming on the side. So I did some Monster Hunter, and also just kind of really on the lookout for really what's the big thing this weekend, which is E3.
Oh yeah, I think everybody is jazzed about E3, and I think we're gonna have like a really big episode next week.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go ahead and plug it. We're gonna have a friend of mine, Dan Marsh. He's been doing podcasting with several different podcasts for the last, really close to 10 years probably. And I mean, Dan is just a super knowledgeable guy. So you definitely want to look out for next week's episodes. Not that we don't have a super knowledgeable guy this week
No?
with Mr. Malcolm. Malcolm, what have you been up to this week?
I have been getting lost again in playing Bloodborne. Actually, in terms of my spare time, I guess I missed being punished and missed being miserable, and just generally having contempt for life. So I've been trudging through
The Stockholm syndrome of Souls games
Yeah.
has
Oh,
come
oh
back.
yeah.
Right.
I'm
Let's
deep
be
in. I'm
honest.
deep in.
From Software has made an art out of making misery fun.
That's true.
I picked it up when it came out. I played it, beat it, and then sort of set it down, and always meant to come back to it. And so it was free again on PlayStation Plus, but the new, or I guess it's not new anymore, but the DLC for the Hunter, for what's it called, the Old Hunters, I think it was on sale, so I picked it up. So that's
There you
how
go.
I've been spending my my free time, and then reading some. I'm reading the current Miss Marvel comic book series, so that's also what I've been.
Miss
up
Marvel's
to.
so good.
I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, I have the first volume omnibus I picked up, and it's been a blast to read so far.
Great.
Yeah, she's such a great character.
Yeah.
And as far as what I've had going on this week, I've got a big month ahead of me when it comes to
All right, what
Magic
you
the
got?
Gathering. On the 30th, we have a PPTQ within a couple of hours of us. That
really?
I am seriously preparing for. I've been grinding out games on on MTG Arena. I've been playing as much as I can physical, just trying to prepare as best I can with the deck that I'm playing. I've probably knocked out 150 games with the deck since I got it. So I'm just really trying to prepare for this PPTQ as much as possible, and hopefully get an invite to the regional Pro
I
Tour
have to
squad.
ask, since you had, did you go to FNM?
I did go to F&M last night.
Is the streak still alive?
It is not.
Ah, what on earth?
With Magic, because it's so variance based, sometimes you just have a bad
Yeah.
night. And I had a match where first game I got mana flooded, second game I got mana screwed. It just
Oh man.
it was such a non-match, and it felt bad because it was against the best player in the store.
Right.
Some of the players in that store, nothing against them, they're just a little more casual. I feel like I could have drawn out of it, but it was against the best player in the store besides myself.
Okay.
So
It was fun while it lasted.
for those that don't know, I've been on a 3-4 week no loss streak at F&M, so that's what he was referring to there. But it has ended. The bounty has been collected because there was a bounty on my head for a loss.
Yeah, that's how much of a streak it was.
Right. But you live, you learn, you move on. So
Yeah, if we learned anything from streaks in wrestling, you just continue on undefeated anyway.
yeah, there you go. Just gotta
So-
gotta start the streak over again.
Yeah, you
So.
just start it again. It'll be fine.
Right. So, man, there was some big news. Big news. And I knew when I saw this news, I was like, Malcolm's going to be on the podcast this week.
Yep.
We have to talk about this.
Okay.
HBO has officially given the green light for a Game of Thrones prequel series.
Excellent. I like it.
Very exciting.
So Malcolm, I'm gonna, you're a big Game of Thrones guy, so I'm just gonna kind of what are your thoughts on this? What are you hoping for out of it? Just what are anything about it? Like what comes to your mind first when you think about them greenlighting this prequel?
I'm really excited to see kind of what the Targaryen action is going to be. Of course, we've seen them. We sort of see the aftermath of them in the books and in the series, and we sort of hear of this powerful empire and stuff like that. And I don't know in terms of where they're going to exactly start. Like, are the Targaryens going to have their dragons? Are the dragons going to be sort of at their, I think what in the books it says like they were basically like the size of dogs sort of before the last one died out in Westeros. Right. So I don't know like how big they'll be or how much they'll factor into the stories that they're going to tell. Like, are they going to do sort of vignettes? Are we going to follow like some more famous heroes in the Age of Heroes that George R. R. Martin specifically mentions? There are a lot of places they can go with this for better or for worse. Certainly, it's a very obviously rich backstory.
Right, and so for those that don't know, the announcement states that we're going to start in the Age of Heroes, and it's going to be the descent into the darkest hour of Westeros. Now, Ben, you're kind of our Game of Thrones historian as far as the lore goes.
I would very much outrage the internet if I tried to claim that as a title.
Well, of the three of us, I'm pretty sure you're probably the most studied.
That's fair.
I would defer to Ben always
Right.
on Game of Thrones knowledge.
So were the Targaryens in Westeros during the Age of Heroes?
I don't really think they were, because this Age of Heroes, I believe, was before Aegon first arrived with the big three. So his two sisters. I mean, since this is the TV show and they do kind of their own spin on things, you could have Valerians that arrive over, but I wouldn't know if they would be derived into being what we would recognize as Targaryens.
Right.
I think like that's where like you hear prequel. And to me, when that was announced, my first thought was Robert's Rebellion, and then no, it's Age of Heroes instead, which is fine because then it gives them freedom to do things that are not so similar to the show we've had for years on end. And Robert's Rebellion is very similar to the show we've had for years on end. So this allows them to have the freedom to show off more of the world, which is a very big deal, at least to George R. R. Martin. Because he did have the World of Ice and Fire book come out. I haven't read it yet. I do want to have it to skim through, and so I can think to myself, so this is what I have instead of Winds of Winter.
Oh, yeah. That book will be released by the time that you are really 43 years old.
Yeah, literally. It's, I mean, my policy on Winds of Winter is until I have it in my hands, I don't believe anything. is real about it.
I've just that book's never coming out.
No, like
I've just resigned myself.
When
to that
I
fact.
finally have it in my hands, after I hand my method of purchasing, either card or cash, to the vendor, that's when I'll believe it. Like I can go into Barnes and Noble, and if it would be on the shelf, I'd be like, no, that's fake. It's fake news. That's not a
Right.
no, I don't believe it. Like I wouldn't believe taking it to the counter to pay for it until after I bought it. Like it really is real.
Right.
I don't think I would believe it until like I finished reading it, until like I read the last page. Because like after I finish it, like the last page would be like, FYI, this was / fanfic. So
you start reading it and you get halfway through the book, and the second half of the book is nothing but blank pages.
Oh no!
Exactly.
Like I just didn't finish it. Yeah, I'll finish it next year.
I really got sucked into creating the cookbook of Ice and Fire. Instead, it was just really kind of took me away from Winds of Winter. But don't worry, it's coming out.
Do not give him ideas.
No,
he's writing something else for Westeros, right? Isn't there some other thing he's like working on?
Yeah, I think so.
I forget what it is now. But
Martin's always working on a side project, it seems.
That's
true. He's working on literally everything that isn't Winds of Winter.
Well, it took Winter forever to come.
Exactly.
Maybe he doesn't know how to write Westeros in the middle of winter. Like, maybe he's literally stomped. Like, it's always been like that summer, fall time. And it's like, now that it's actually winter, he's like, what happens in winter in Westeros?
Yeah, it's like, oh, I spent so long hyping it up. I'm not really sure what to put in there. But, I mean, they could just do what the show is doing and copy the Scourge from Warcraft.
Hey,
and go from there.
That was like one of my biggest complaints about the end of season 7. Which, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen Game of Thrones. If you haven't seen it by now, it's been out for quite a while. That's your own fault. So it's like literally we have the Lich King. Literally the Lich King, undead dragon and all that breathes blue flame or ice or something. We're not quite sure on that yet.
Nobody's clarified it yet.
Like, which while we're on that, before we, I do want to eventually get back to talking about the prequel a little bit. But Malcolm, what were your thoughts on season 7? Because I know a lot of people didn't like it. I am in that boat of I wasn't a huge fan of it. But what are your thoughts on it?
So I know like the big point of contention for everyone is the time jump.
Yes.
When we have the one, I'm now forgetting which one of them.
Gendry.
When he sort of runs back. Also, just very, very glad that he just became a relevant character, because he sort of disappeared off the face of the map.
He literally disappeared.
Yeah.
And he sort of shows back up to kind of be what the first book kind of promised that he was maybe going to be.
Well, they found him again in the smithy, right? When they were assembling a Crackerjack team. So I like to think that he got on the boat, got there, and it was like, I don't know what my job is anymore. Well, that was dumb. I guess I'll go back to work. It's
yeah,
like the very One Punch Man approach to adventuring.
Yeah, exactly. So it was fun. That was a big point of contention. I actually was relieved when they did the time jump, because when I saw him running back, I'm just like, oh god, this is going to be like 3 episodes of him running. Like if they had done it sort of appropriately, that it made sense how long it took them to get there, how long it takes him to get back. Like if they had done that, I would have I was actually relieved, because I wanted to get to the thing that I thought was important, even though like it doesn't make sense that what seems like a 40, what takes them like 3 days to get out there, like he seems to get back in like 45 minutes, and then Khaleesi gets out there in like 15
Daenerys
minutes.
Targaryen, sorry.
Yes, Daenerys Targaryen.
I'm sorry, that's still one of my triggers for Game of Thrones. It's like she has a name.
Yes, no, I do. I know she's Daenerys Targaryen, but Khaleesi, it's it is queen.
I'll just call Cersei queen then.
You could. She is queen now. But that being said, because we don't have the Winds of Winter, and because we don't know how this is going to play out in George R.R. Martin's world, like it is very satisfying, at least for me, to see kind of where just to get to have that resolution of that frustration of like
any resolution.
Yeah, just kind of seeing anything kind of happen. It's also like, I don't know, like, so the bit where they like get the undead to like show to Cersei to prove to her that this is all real. That just felt like such like a D&D campaign.
Oh,
Like
it
that,
did.
it felt
Yes.
like something like the DM is like, all right, you have to prove to the king of the castle. It's like, well, why don't we just like put one in a box or something? And like we'll just carry him over. And it's like it's a D&D game, so of course you get to do that. I mean, it'd be.
They had to form a literal D&D party to go beyond the wall to get to the
they
zombie.
do. Yes, they do literally for a D&D, and they, I guess Gendry must have done like a critical roll on his athletics check
Must have.
and make
Must
it
have.
to make it all the way back. So like that felt kind of like it sort of like makes sense that they would do it, but like it also is just such a oddly outlandish idea compare, because like Khaleesi or sorry, Daenerys Targaryen could also just like, I don't know. I mean, she sort of half does it, like when she goes to take Westeros with her dragons.
Right.
Like she could just sort of ignore it, go take them because she could take it in an afternoon, and then with whatever forces are left, go back and defend from the White Walkers. So yeah, I mean, it's. I overall enjoyed it. I think more than other fans did, but I certainly can see the criticisms in the season.
Right. And what you talked about there with like Gendry running, like I was 100% behind the time jump. I had no problem with it. The problem and what took me out of the suspension of disbelief is Gendry not only had to run from how far north of the wall they were to the wall, but then he also had to make it to Daenerys, and she was at what, Dragonstone?
Yeah,
Okay.
She was.
And so they're up north, the temperatures are sub-zero. They're stuck on this island with undead surrounding it, and nobody starved to death. Nobody froze to death.
Nobody had to take a poo either.
And there was like no issues with them just being on this island for like, I mean, it had to at least be a week that Gendry was getting back to Daenerys, at least.
Yeah, it's certainly like it is become Lord of the Rings. Like that was a Lord of the Rings like section of like our heroes fighting off the bad guys, but like they're gonna win. Like everyone's
Right.
gonna get back okay,
Mhm.
Except
like,
for
maybe a few
Viserion.
Yes.
Except for
that was definitely I think that was a big pull. Like that
now
was
going by his new name, Sindragosa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I will say this, and I am probably like one of the harshest people you will ever meet as far as continuity goes within any kind of medium of storytelling that I get into. But you know what really aggravated me that the community complained about?
What?
Hit us.
The daggum metal chains that the White Walkers pulled out. Like, just because we didn't see them doesn't mean that they didn't come prepared with them.
No, we needed a whole section in reminiscence of the forge scenes in Isengard where they're making the armaments and the actual Urukai. Like, we needed that scene for those chains, clearly.
Right.
We needed a good, solid scene of just dead things making chains.
Right.
I mean, couldn't they? Because don't they take? I mean, what if there was just a group of dudes that they killed and they just had a lot of chains on them, and the White Walker was like, we'll put those in the back. We're gonna need those, I bet.
Well, it's also like not far-fetched to think like you can't imagine they only hinged this plan on the possibility that not only would somebody manage to bring dragons back from extinction, but that they would be full-grown, they would be brought up here, we'd be able to kill one. Therefore, that's why we need the chains, because that's the only way possible we can get over the wall.
Well, let's be honest about this. This was the Night King's plan from the very beginning. Like, there is a reason why they have it marched on the wall. There is a reason why he had the ice javelins whenever the dragons showed up. He was prepared for this. His whole goal was to get them to come to him with the dragons so he could get the dragons. And it just so happened that he failed in that and only got one of them. He knew about Daenerys.
If he wasn't spec'd so hard into Frost, he could have spec'd into Unholy, and then he could have had a plague go down south of the wall, and then he could have a bunch of guys already ready to go.
Right. Which, let's be honest, with everything that got said about King's Landing, like with it being 1 million people and all that stuff, King's Landing is about to turn into a hotbed of undead.
Yeah.
Like, they made too much of a point of that. So, I just like hit my hand on my desk, like ah.
Well, whenever you're ready, I'm ready to talk about more potential things for the prequel series.
Yeah. Let's definitely get into that.
Okay,
Old news is old news. We can move on to the new news.
So I looked. I've accessed the archives of my Game of Thrones knowledge with the assistance of the internet, and it turns out one of the things that we could probably see is actually reminiscent to what we have actually in the series, since it is the Age of Heroes before the darkest period in Westeros history.
Right.
Taken literally, that refers to the first long night. So the first time that the others would come down, and then were fought off by the Children of the Forest.
Like how Robert's Rebellion is for you, Ben. That is for me. Like I want to see the others just completely decimate Westeros.
Yeah, so that's probably what we're getting then if they're referring to the Darkest Age right after the Age of Heroes. And like the other stuff you could see is Azor Ahai, like actual Azor Ahai, with the Lightbringer, not
Right.
Ashbringer, Lightbringer. So you have that to look forward to, and you can see all the different characters that we've known from the age. Bran the Builder, Lan the Clever, they may still be around.
Which
So-
in before they introduce a character that you think is going to be Azor Ahai in season 1, and then he dies
Yeah,
in season 1.
yeah, really.
Like has the flaming swords and everything, and then literally like the second to last episode of the season. Because for those that don't watch Walking Dead, Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, excuse me. Wow, completely different genre. We're talking about undead stuff. So, but if you,
I think they're starting. There's a Venn diagram. I think there's some overlap.
So, but for those that don't watch Game of Thrones, the second to last episode is always like the big episode of the season. So I can just see it now, like second to last episode of season 1, and bam, he's dead.
And it's very anticlimactic on top of that. It's not even like he
That would be
just
very
basically falls
appropriate.
off a castle wall. Like
Oh, that would be hilarious. I would love to.
it would
Like-
be the best.
like Bran the Builder invites him over to Winterfell. Like, hey, look at this wall I built, and he goes up on the wall and just boom, it falls.
And you know what causes it? He's like, I bet I could pee off this. Like it's like Tyrion, and just falls over. It's like, oh.
Well, no, what would be great
Oh.
is if he does that and like he puts down his flaming sword and like melts the ice like just enough that he like slips,
Yeah.
and then that's how he falls to his doom.
Yeah,
Oh,
that would do it.
That'd
That
be
would-
funny.
yeah.
That'd be.
I
don't
would
think
love
that'll,
something
that'll
like that.
happen, but that would be funny.
Yeah, sure. I'll take if that's not the actual episode, I'll take an alternative version that someone edits on YouTube.
Sure.
That'll be a fair consolation.
Now,
So-
one thing I really want to see myself is like you said, bringing back some of the characters that have been mentioned in the history that we don't get to meet. And I mean, obviously, I don't believe Bran the Builder lived for 1,000 years. Like
Probably not.
They believe in Westeros, but it would be interesting to see the man that the legend was built around.
Sure.
Whether it's him or any of the Lannister, patriarchs that were, made into legend. Like there's so many Age of Hero characters that if you actually go on the Song of Ice and Fire wiki, like just look up the Age of Hero, and there's some of the more interesting characters because of the mythology built around them. And it would be really cool to just see what they were actually like and to see how flawed they actually were.
Yeah.
And even see a few of them die in ways that, the current Westeros people have been like, nah, that didn't happen.
Yep.
Sure.
I think
yeah,
as
no.
long as they stick to kind of this area and don't do anything really stupid, like introduce the fact that you can only control dragons if you have midichlorians, then you should be fine.
Yeah. I mean, I
So
think
wait, so are there so of course in the beginning of our podcast I showed my great ignorance by just right off the bat I was like, oh man, when you asked me about Age of Heroes in my head I was like, you know what, I don't really know that much about Age of Heroes.
Yeah.
But so now that I have been properly learned by our personal Samuel Tarly,
Oh, please.
Tarly. You're the more beautiful one of the two. I just want you to know that, Ben. You'll always be my Sam.
You're such a bad liar.
I am. Well, I do. I like you over Samuel Tarly. But so the Andals, they do come down during the Age of Heroes, though, right? At some point, or is that at the end when they not necessarily to conquer, but
So the Andals, I believe the Andals do show up by the end of the Age of Heroes, at least in the southern part of Westeros.
Yeah, I think that would be actually a good way to end the season is if you have them brought forth. I don't know.
And do the Andals bring the dragons?
No. That's when Aegon initiates his conquest because that's when the Targaryen family goes from Dragonstone after they move there from the Doom of Valyria, and then they go on to their conquest of Westeros.
Now that I think about it, okay, so the Andals come after the peace has been made between the First Men and the Children of the Forest.
Yes, that's right.
So that would be like an end of the show kind of thing. Like everything, the long night ends, and then the Andals show up at the very end to kind of, be the beginning of everybody's doom because they pretty much, I mean, they basically outbreed the First Men and then kill out the Children of the Forest.
Yeah, and a lot of the problems with like the main show are almost directly responsible because of the Andals.
Right. So. That would definitely be an interesting.
And if it wasn't the Andals, it was the Targaryens. It's just one or the other.
So, Malcolm, now that you know a little bit more about the Age of Heroes, and the fact that we're going to be seeing the Long Night, like, what do you expect, and like, what do you think they have to do to make this series as good as the original?
Oh boy, that's hard. I'm trying to think. So I know you would want to see like the White Walkers or the others come back, and sort of how they dealt with it sort of the first time. Which it'd be cool, like how they figure out how Dragonglass works and sort of the things that Jon Snow and the Night's Watch are like trying, like as the old leader of the Night's Watch. I can't remember his name now either.
Which
Mormont?
Later than
Mormont, yes, the Mormont. He is sort of like, we used to know this, like we dealt with this. The Night's Watch dealt with this at one point, but like we can't remember. So to see like kind of where all that knowledge went or what happened would definitely be fun. I don't know if I would want to see the White Walkers again though, especially because that's like what this one's building up to. I definitely though like sort of don't meet your heroes kind of thing, because Game of Thrones is all about sort of like disappointing you, but then you come to love them again.
Right.
So like I think following sort of the general formula of like heroes, like people like, so Bran the Builder, big favorite, maybe learning that maybe they weren't such a nice guy, or that sort of learning that there were problems with that character. He's not as great as everybody thought, and sort of learning about the flaws of these characters, or potentially about how characters that had been cast as villains might actually been really heroes. But
wouldn't that be great? Like, and I know you would love this, Malcolm, if the Lannisters ended up being the good guys and the Starks were all jerks.
Sure, yeah, exactly. Maybe the Starks are dicks, or sorry, mean people.
That's your one for the episode.
Yeah, that's our collective one. Like we don't each get one. So
okay, I'm sorry I wasted that.
No, it's fine.
I'm gonna start a swear jar. That's what I need to do.
Yes, no, that would be cool. I mean, I love the Starks. I think they're the best. I root for all of them. Even
you always play Stark in the board games.
I always play Stark in the board games, and like even though Arya is like maybe kind of a sociopath now, like I'm still rooting for her. Or just is flat out at this point.
Arya is basically doing like a Dishonored High Chaos playthrough at this point of Westeros.
Definitely. I'm sure she's got some weird magic powers.
Oh yeah, she has the mark of the outsider, easy.
Yeah, she's got something going on. But yeah, to learn, because like, right, aren't there some theories that Bran the Builder, that like our Bran, like maybe was Bran the Builder, like that's how he got, that he started the building of the wall when he got his, haven't I heard that one before?
That is pretty legit. Like that's a good little theory.
I think I cannot take, I think I read that somewhere that Bran the Builder. So like maybe like, and obviously there is some like ethical, I don't know, like what if Bran, like he's, like Bran keeps like possessing the family over and over again. As one dies, he sort of jumps to the next one to like ensure that the wall is built or something like that.
Yeah.
or to ensure the founding of the Starks, because it has to be done. So like, this hero that you think has lived for 1,000 years, like it would be interesting if, like, so let's say obviously
Wow.
Bran the Builder like doesn't live 1,000 years, but like there is some element of truth to that, or there is something weird going on that
So-
does end up why that sort of myth,
Okay.
came
I've got to
to
get a
be.
sound. I got to get a soundboard because it seems that it's becoming a tradition that every episode my mind gets blown on something. And like you just blew my mind with that. Like Bran the Builder lived 1,000 years, and what that represents is that Bran was possessing different Starks throughout that 1,000. Oh my gosh!
it was the Game of Thrones version of the Dread Pirate Roberts. Like
Oh.
just each one becomes Bran the Builder.
If that ends up being true, like, wow. But I don't know if
If it
the
ends up being true,
writers
you
of
heard
the
it here
shows are that
first.
smart.
I feel like I can't take credit for that. I think I read that or heard that from
Well,
somewhere.
you do now.
But
I'm still
Uh,
gonna kiss your very bald, shiny head.
well,
If that
it
happens.
is quite shiny, hard to miss, especially when the sun's
He'll
out.
polish it extra special for just that occasion.
Yeah, no, I will. Now, next time I see you, I'll get my scented oils and my
Oh,
head
baby.
polish. I know it's. I mean, we can't say bad words, but we can be very suggestive on this show, no doubt.
We can. Disney Marvel
Uh,
movies are, so I can't wait.
Cue
That's
up
true.
the Disgruntled
That's
Geeks
true.
After Hours,
Haha.
where we
Yeah,
start
they'll
the
be-
funky music.
Behind
Exactly.
a paywall, of course.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, we're gonna have to Patreon that real hard.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to have a Patreon member if you want.
Mostly to
After Hours.
cover for the lawsuits that will follow afterwards.
Yeah, mostly just all the suing that will come
Yeah.
after us.
Right.
Uh,
So,
so yeah,
Ben-
I think
Ben,
it's a fun show.
So one of the things I just want to bring this up real quick because we've got a little bit of time left, and I do want to talk about Spider-Man here in just a second.
Oh yeah.
But I do want to bring up a point real quick. Is like I am concerned about this show as much like Game of Thrones, the original show, has me hooked right now. Like it does not matter if season 7 would have been absolute garbage. I still would have to finish it because it's just I'm so far deep in now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
But another show is not going to have its claws in me like that, even with the same name. If they just do Game of Thrones with something else to be the prequel. And a good example of that, even with a show that did great all the way up to the end, is Breaking Bad. With Breaking Bad, like, oh my gosh, like, I loved that show from about season 2 on. You know, I'm not a huge fan of season 1. A little too slow, meandering. But it really picked up whenever they introduced Kristen Ritter in season 2 because she's awesome. But
Yeah.
you know they but then Better Call Saul came out, and like
Right.
the first episode just it didn't get there. I go in expecting Breaking Bad, and what I got was something completely different. And I think that there's a possibility that this prequel will suffer some of that same thing.
Yeah.
And that you're going to be Game of Thrones, but it's not necessarily going to feel like Game of Thrones.
Right.
So, you know what? How do they avoid that happening? Like, what is their way of getting the people who have enjoyed the main series and saying you do want to watch this? This is relevant to you. This is something you want to keep up with. And neither one of you can go.
I think the main, like in my personal opinion, one of the ways they could do that is if they really come out the gate swinging with just really compelling characters in the story. Because when Game of Thrones first came out, that was really all we had were these characters that we started with and followed in their journey in a very sort of true to like almost historical retelling of a medieval time. And it was only after a while you got slowly introduced to the magical element to where it's like the world is now kind of where most fantasy RPGs start in terms of magic level and whatnot.
Right.
And in a prequel world, it's very tempting to do that. But if you do that in a world, in a timeline in the world where we just don't really care about that, that's going to be a problem. So I think the main thing is just if you have strong characters that we want to follow their journey on, then that's great. Like comparing to your Breaking Bad example, I like Saul Goodman as a character, but he's not as strong a character as Walter White.
Nowhere near it.
No, not even close. So I think you just have to have something that's like a hook for people that's relatable enough to really get them in so that they buy into the mythos, which
Right.
has been a problem because like George R. R. Martin cares very much about this mythos. This is his project, it's his baby, but not a lot of other people do. They care about the issues that plague the characters that they're interested in following. So it's almost like you have to start back at square one and sort of trick people into being interested in the mythos.
Right. And I'm afraid that Age of Heroes may feed into the let's just be high fantasy.
Yeah.
And so, Malcolm, you get the final say. Like, any last thoughts on any of the stuff with the prequels?
I think also something. So I also am using a little handy friend, the internet, to supplement my ignorance on
Good.
this. The Age of Heroes is a really 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 big time span.
Right.
What is it? I think they say I guess it's 10,000 years before the events of what's happening currently in the years of Westeros, and okay, it lasted for 4 millennia. They say.
Mhm.
Yeah, from the signing of the okay, so they consider it out. So the signing of the pact until the Andal invasion is what they're sort of getting at. So like a lot of stuff happens, and I guess to your point of like how do you keep it kind of fresh or how do you keep it sort of interesting, um, I think if you look at what makes Game of Thrones good, like if you try to take it down to its components, there is sort of sex,
Yeah, all the things we
betrayal,
can't have on this show.
all the things we can't have on this show.
That's for the after hours show.
For sure. Can I not, I'm sorry, can I not say that? Is that can I
No,
say
you're
the-
good. You're
Oh,
good.
No,
okay.
you're fine.
But also killing, like just a touch of realism is not the right word, but defying expectations. Everybody that read the Game of Thrones book, for the first time, Game of Thrones, and everyone that watched the first season thought Ned Stark was our hero and thought we were going to
Right.
follow Ned Stark, and then he died. And even in book 5 and even in the TV series, like Ned Stark is still talked about. So like the effects of his death rippled throughout
Hmm.
that show. And obviously we have the red wedding, we have the purple wedding, and I think if they are willing to sort of take those bold moves again and sort of take people that you consider heroes or that you care about and either make them do sort of horrible thing, like sort of have their glory sort of be tainted, or have them people that are terrible, like as I imagine you guys have come. We felt one way about Jamie Lannister, and now we maybe feel slightly different and
Right.
ambivalent, at least. Certainly, you come out hating him. I think if you're a mentally healthy human being, you probably don't like Jamie Lannister, and now you might like him or understand where he's coming from, or at the very least be sort of ambivalent now, kind of like, well, I've seen a lot of good and bad in him. So I think those elements, I think the show has is very human elements. People make mistakes,
Right.
people do terrible things, people recover from them, people die from some of the mistakes they make, just as Robb Stark and Ned Stark learned. And I think if they can keep that, and obviously the characters are important, the setting is important, but I think if they keep those sort of core tenets, I think they can make a compelling show that would be fun to watch.
Okay. So guys, definitely keep your ears open for more info on the Game of Thrones prequel. I'm sure
We
it's going to
certainly
be.
will.
It's probably going to be a while before we get really any good information on it. I figured they'll probably try to keep the hype going from the end of Game of Thrones, the main series, next year by releasing content for the new series. So definitely within the next year, I think we're going to start really seeing how that's going to flesh out. And speaking of seeing how something is going to flesh out, something I have been excited for a long time,
Hmm.
ever since Marvel announced it, is the Spider-Man animated movie.
Yeah.
Um,
See,
and
yeah, I sent you the link to the trailer today, so this is like your first reactions to it.
it
So I'm very
is.
excited for this.
It is. So I mean, I'm gonna jump into this first because
By all means.
I will say I'm really excited for Miles Morales to get his second Marvel movie, considering considering the fact that Peter was characterized as Miles Morales in Homecoming, and some people will debate me on that, but that's just my personal opinion on it. But I didn't feel like that was really Peter. I felt like it was Miles. But I will tell you, I have some major issues with this trailer.
Of course you do.
I have some major issues with this trailer. First,
Well, let's hear them.
the art style that they're going with for the movie, it is very comic bookish, and I think it really works for the action sequences from what we saw in the trailer. But for the non-action sequences, it looks goofy. Like I just can't buy it. Now I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to say like, hey, the movie's going to be terrible because of it. I'm going to wait and see it and see how it actually works in practice.
Sure.
But it does not like it's something that stood out as a red flag to me.
Okay.
And then the second thing, and I've got to be really careful when discussing this topic because I am a white dude. I really didn't see any of the Hispanic of Miles Morales coming out in that trailer. He was characterized as, they show his black father, and he is like, his mother was Hispanic in the comics, and if I remember correctly, she was first generation, so there was some of that culture that still affects Miles's behavior in the comic books. And so you don't see any of that. Instead, what you see is kind of a lower income black male character in that trailer. But again, we don't really get to see his character fully in that trailer. So I can't really say this is going to hurt the movie, but I'm afraid that they're not characterizing Miles how he is in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
I would push back on that just ever so slightly. Not just when you said lower class, because he's going to what looks like a school that has uniforms. He looks like he's going to a really schwanky high school. Now,
right?
He that could be. There are ways to get into expensive high schools and not be rich. There's a lottery system. It could be a charter school, so there might be some. Obviously, I'm sure Miles Morales. I have not read the stuff for him in the comics. I'm sure though he's incredibly smart, or that's an aspect of his character. That seems to be, if you're a Spider-Man, you got to be a genius, or at least pretty smart. So maybe there's an explanation for that they'll have in the movie. But and obviously a beat cop, which seems to be what his dad is they're not known for.
I did like that. The relationship there is absolutely phenomenal.
Really
no, I think my favorite part in that trailer was the click click. You gotta say you love me, son. It's like, Dad, come on, you're not gonna make it. You gotta say it. I love you. It's
I knew I was gonna like it because it's Dad, don't cops run through it? Well, some do, but not this guy.
Yes,
it's he's got the right temperament.
I think it's so funny. That's how I'm telling. If I can get my English right, I think that's how I can tell I'm getting older is whenever I relate to the dad jokes. I'm like, yes. Oh, I would say the exact same thing. That's wonderful.
Yeah. No, that was good. Yeah. No. So sorry. You go.
Yeah, so one of the things I really did like is I loved Peter Parker in this trailer. Mm-hmm. And for people, obviously you guys, you don't really, most of you don't really know us three, but me and Malcolm have had this conversation before about I don't mind characters being characterized different from their comic book characters as long as it makes sense and it still fits the spirit of the character. And this is a very different from what we've seen Peter Parker than we've, he's different than anything we've really ever seen out of Peter, at least adult Peter. Adult Peter in the comics has always been a very confident, he's always, at that point he's experienced and he knows what he's doing. And this clumsy, bumbling Peter Parker being the teacher of Miles Morales, I think is going to be really fun.
He very much reminded me, you guys haven't really read the books as much as I have, but he very much reminds me of Harry Dresden in the scenes. Like it's just how much like he loves a fast food burger and just how he's broken various other things. But like just where it's like he's not going to be the best teacher on paper, but because he has like the heart and the right mentality of not giving up, like he's going to be a great teacher for Miles.
Right. They're definitely doing him a lot better than what Marvel did Hank Pym and Ant-Man.
I'm not going there. So.
Malcolm, what really excited you? Did you have any problems with the trailer?
I don't think I had any. Oh, you know what? I did, and I'm sure I will. Yeah. So one small problem or thing that did not excite me was Gwen Stacy Spider or Spider
Yeah,
Spider-Gwen.
Spider Gwen, and it's not. I mean, I'm happy. I don't mind the character sort of being in there. It's just like now we have like 3 spider people, and I guess that just seemed like maybe a little too.
It's kind of a lot.
It just seemed like a little too much. I don't know how integral she is to the Miles Morales story. I do love her look. Like I think she's got like a really cool spider outfit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if maybe it would have been like if you're gonna do this kind of like spin-off Spider World sort of thing, like maybe I would have preferred to see her like in the second movie, because I can't help but think that they wouldn't be able to give like enough time to her character if they're gonna focus like. Are they going to focus on the Morales-Parker relationship? How is she going to factor in there? So I don't know. It seemed like another, I don't know, maybe too many heroes in the movie. But
she almost feels like she's in kind of the same spot that Wonder Woman was when we saw like her being in Batman versus Superman.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, she's there.
That's cool. I wouldn't have a problem with that being her role in this movie, as long as they give her a movie afterwards.
Sure, because Spider-Gwen is strong enough to carry her own movie if they continue the Spider-Verse.
And she's definitely popular enough.
Oh, yeah.
So,
They'd be stupid not to do it.
I do want to... I've got to look straight at the camera real quick, because I know that no Marvel exec is ever going to watch this or listen to this.
Yeah, buddy.
But if you do...
Peter Feige's just like surfing on YouTube. He's like, what is this?
Don't you dare... Do not do it. Do not make Gwen Stacy a love interest of Miles Morales.
Well, you know that's
don't
what
do it.
Do. Now that you've said it, like that's going to happen.
No,
I can feel it happening.
Like,
sorry, not Kevin Feige's like, oh man, that's a great idea.
No,
we should make them a love interest.
If it happens, like I will literally, I don't care if I've red boxed it or what. I'm gonna literally break the disc.
They're doing it right now. They're actually going back, so they have the movie finished, but after you putting that in the universe, it's now they're going back and they're
having to scrub that plot line out.
Yeah, they're scrubbing it right now.
It just if that happens, I'm done. Like after how much they messed up Mary Jane in the movie, like I just can't do it. They cannot continue to do it.
I don't know very. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with the sort of the Spider-Man lore, because if it's sort of its own self-contained thing, kind of like what are they willing? Because of course I do know that like Peter Parker, at least Peter Parker has spoiler alerts, folks, but he has died for the before Miles Morales becomes sort of the new Spider-Man.
Right.
That they don't really have that. I know there's like one sort of cross-dimensional comic where Peter Parker, the Amazing Spider-Man, gets to meet Ultimate Spider-Man Miles Morales. But
let me update you on where we're at right now in the comics. After Secret Wars, which ended the Ultimate Marvel Universe, Miles Morales from the Ultimate Universe does end up crossing over into the 616 universe, which is the main Marvel universe.
Oh, okay.
So Miles actually is, from my understanding, because I'm not keeping up with it closely, but Miles, from my understanding, is the main Spider-Man right now in Marvel, with Peter as a mentor.
Oh, okay, all right. So they're just sort of doing that same thing in the movie. Yeah, well, that'd be cool. I mean, besides the Gwen Stacy thing, and if they make, I think it's like it could be totally fine if she gets her own movie and she's sort of a good, full-fleshed character, or fully realized character. I'd be okay with it. It seemed like too many superheroes.
Right, especially for a first movie, like. Set up your main characters first, and then introduce some additional heroes. But I mean, if they're gonna try, like, do it in the animated movie, they definitely don't want to be trying something like that in
No,
their cinematic universe,
not a
especially
live
after they've
action
seen how
stuff.
it worked for DC.
Yeah, really.
So,
Yeah.
Ben, what are your thoughts on it? What are you excited about? What complaints did you have?
I'm overall pretty much excited for it since I first saw the trailer. Like, I really like the fact that it's Miles Morales getting the spotlight because he's a really good character. And it's one, like, since I don't really read much of the comics, there's one I was hoping to see more of. So this is going to be great. I already love the relationship that's being built, not only between Miles and his actual father, but between his mentor, Peter, like, throughout the entire movie. That's been great. My confusion is in terms of, like, who are the bad people in the movie, because I did a little bit of research before the show, and I know that Wilson Fisk is going to be in it.
Hmm.
And you can see him, like, he's like the really big guy getting blown back in two of the shots.
Yeah.
But again, maybe you guys can fill me in on this if you know. But, like, when Spider-Man rescues, quote unquote, rescues Miles in, like, that first scene where they meet, who is Peter fighting? Like, the dragon thing?
It looked. I thought that was Green. I took that to be Green Goblin.
Yeah, that looked a little bit like the ultimate version of Green Goblin.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I
have to
thought
go
it
look
was.
at it because, I mean, I guess I don't, because I don't remember him having, like, the big head thing, unless his ultimate look has changed since I last read it.
Well, the ultimate version of Green Goblin is gone, erased from existence.
Oh yeah, that's true. I guess it is Goblin because it does look like he has, like, in the shot there's like a purple sort of thing coming off his head that looks like his classic hat,
Right.
and, like, so I could see your point that that's probably who that is.
Which I guess that means Osborn is already. That I guess yeah. I mean Osborn is not part of the Miles Morales, so it's okay. Yeah, we don't really necessarily need that plot thread. That can already be sort of a fully realized thing already by the time we get to this movie.
Right.
They did do kind of the thing, which is, I guess they had to explain it in the trailer, but, like, I think my least favorite part of it was when we get to the point where it's like, oh, you thought there was only your universe, but there are other universes that are different from yours. It's like, yes, I'm familiar with the concept of multi-universes. Thank you.
Well, it's for those. I almost said, like, Ben, you know me, but Ben, you do know me. For those of you that don't know me, I'm really big on, like, following certain movie tropes because it's what there's a reason why movie tropes are movie tropes. Is because of the fact that it's what creates engagement with the audience. And it's not that, I mean, people way smarter than me have studied what keeps people engaged in movies. And one of the things that is really important is a thing called Chekhov's gun, which is essentially, it's a concept that if at the beginning of a play, you see a gun hanging over the fireplace, at some point in Act 3, someone will use that gun. And so I think that what they're doing there is, I think that's a Chekhov's gun. Like, they're telling us that this movie, they're telling us what the premise of the movie as far as Miles Morales' character arc and his development is going to be. But I also think that the underlying, what they were trying to tell us about the plot from the trailer was that there will be a multi-universal aspect to this movie. And I'm pretty sure that's where Gwen is going to come in.
Oh yeah, more likely.
Interesting. Oh
I
man,
think
you
it's
think
just,
they'll
I still
tie
have
in the
a
Venom movie into it? That would be the Tom Hardy masterpiece.
No.
Oh, wow.
The greatest Marvel movie of all time. It's gonna be better than Infinity War and Ragnarok and all of them put together. That's gonna be so great.
No.
Would you like to play a game?
No.
Guess
No,
what?
I won't.
It's Hangman. Starts with V. I'm a type of poison. What am I?
Can I drink that poison now?
Yes, just tell me what I am, or tell
No,
me.
I'd rather die.
We've
Tell
literally
us
lost
what we
control of the
are.
show, Ben.
Yeah, I know, it's the worst.
He took it over.
So there is something also, like, as far as your point with the animation, I think it's kind of, I'm a bit more positive towards the animation than you are. There's just one frame where I think that it's really odd, and it's like the one where Peter and Miles are having the conversation in, I guess, the subway tunnel, and they're doing it with their masks off because they can. And it goes over to Peter where he's, like, doing the kneeling pose, and he just looks weirdly drawn in that.
Yeah.
Like, his shoulders are just all over the place. And that's the only thing that really stands out. I was like, that's bizarre.
Yeah, and that does, if I've read plenty of comics, and I've seen plenty of comic book characters be in really weird looking poses.
Sure.
And again, I don't know if that's not intentional, because I think the whole point
It
of this
may be.
movie is to be a moving comic book.
It may be.
But who
So-
knows? I mean,
But because of that, I'm not really going to consider it like any major strike or anything. I do think that the style they're going for is well done. It's just, it may just be jarring in places. But overall, I'm excited to see this at Christmas. There's not really much else that I can say is like, oh, I hate this about the trailer. Like everything else is like, I either think, oh, that's neat, or it's like, I really love it. Like all the scenes that showcase Miles and his dad's relationship.
right. So real quick, we are getting towards the end of the show. Malcolm, you're the guest of honor this week. I'm
touched.
gonna let you get the absolute last word again, and this time on Spider-Man.
Oh man, you guys are gentlemen. Actually, though, does it is Ben's birthday? Shouldn't he get the last word?
Oh, he's gonna get the last word of the podcast. Trust me.
Oh boy,
Okay, all right, good.
I
Last
gotta
word,
make sure it's a
Spider-Man.
good one.
Spider-Man looks good. I'm really excited. I think the art styles. I think it's gorgeous. I am all for like bringing back animation. I do like it that it has kind of that hand-drawn look. I'm not really a big fan of everything going CGI. I do miss animated classics and like hand-drawn. And obviously this is still 3D, but it is sort of giving that sort of almost watercolor painting look, I guess, or maybe more of a stencil paint. It's giving that comic book feel. I do really like seeing that, and I'm excited to see kind of what issues they because it is its own sort of self-contained bubble. It's not necessarily connected to the larger cinematic universe. What more interesting things they might do, like in the comics. Like there are things that they're afraid to do or don't go quite as outlandish in the movies because they do want to keep a certain mainstream appeal, but maybe in this they will take more risks and do weirder stuff, and I think that'd be cool.
Great point. That is, doing seeing something separate from the cinematic universe. That especially how they locked in their Spider-Man in the cinematic universe.
Sure.
Now we get to see kind of an origin story that isn't just Peter Parker's origin story being told for the 15th time.
Yeah.
So, guys, we are nearing the end of our hour, but I've kind of been holding back something that I've been wanting to do.
Oh,
And so I figured since it's Ben's birthday,
it is.
that I wanted to do a giveaway.
Oh,
That if we match what I'm about to say for the giveaway, I'm going to give away a $20 Amazon gift card to a random viewer or person, because we're going to do this on Facebook. So you definitely want to go follow us on Facebook. Just search in the Disgruntled Geeks. You'll find us. It's easy. We got the mean-looking, geek guy there.
he's so mean.
But on top of giving the $20 gift card to, and this is me personally doing this, to a random commenter, I'm also going to give a $20 gift card to Ben
Aw,
on top of anything else I do for him for his birthday. So what we're going to do is I'm going to be posting a status on Monday, which will be the 11th, June the 11th. So for those of you that are listening to this on the Wayback Machine, a year from now when we're a year old, sorry you missed out on it. But I'm going to post a status, and what you've got to do is comment on the status, Happy Birthday, Ben, and share the status.
there you go.
And what we'll do is if we get, what I'll do is it's $20 a piece, is it's got to be 20 comments and 20 shares.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
And so that's, basically you have an opportunity to get a $20 Amazon gift card, and also help gift Ben a $20 Amazon gift card.
Mhm.
So,
Don't, man, this is hard with this being PG-13. Ben's a good guy, so do the right thing, or else bad things, or just do it.
kittens will die.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. I mean, I wasn't gonna go.
I don't know
Wasn't
if
gonna-
I asked for any of this on my behalf.
No, I didn't. I didn't. Ben, be quiet. I'm talking for you. Okay.
Oh, I see.
Ben need this is important to Ben. This is gonna be his big birthday bash, and don't be cruel. Don't be selfish. Don't. I mean, like, what are you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with your time anyway? What else? Huh?
Yeah, it's 20 seconds to potentially get $20 and to give Ben
Yeah.
$20.
Easy.
It's pretty good.
Easy. So
There you
don't be bad.
It's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. This has been the Disgruntled Geeks podcast. We are the most honest, the most critical, and sometimes the most cynical podcast you'll ever hear. And as I promised, Ben, you get the last word.
The last word is kumquat.